Hold on a second. What is happening? Hey, what's up, guys? Ryan here. Super excited that you're here. Looks like we got lots of people today automatically here. Hey, Tiff, when you walk out of the room, you're going to have to take this phone because it was echoing pretty bad there. So what is up on Facebook, on YouTube? Tiff, if you can do me a huge favor, share the stream onto the group because I was never able to get that fixed. And let's see. So what's up, guys? Let me know if you can hear me. I'm going to invite some people up on the stage. If you guys want to join the conversation, we're going to be on ClubHouse. You can talk with me, and hopefully we'll have quite a bit of fun. Joe Yeager, how are you, buddy?
Hey, good to be here. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Can you hear me, or is it like, are you really far away from your mic?
No, I'm good. I'm just trying to connect my headset so that the rest.
Okay, so maybe the problem is you. Let's see on YouTube and Facebook. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay, we can hear you. All right, cool. Maybe there's this problem with Joe's mic there. So, lots of crazy stuff happening in the world. Lots of violence. Had some wild videos I was going to share with you guys. But then I noticed that we have reached the time of the year when all of these crazy anti-gun politicians start their nonsense. They start flooding our system with a bunch of new gun control bills. There's probably about a dozen, maybe more, anti-gun bills. And there's like 3 pro-gun bills, which is usually the way that it works. So we're going to kind of run through some of these, and then we'll get some opinions from some people here up on the stage. So, of course, the legendary Gary Farmer has got a bunch of bills that he submitted with the Senate. So the first one is SB 204. It's the sale and delivery of firearms. So this bill would require the parties in either the sale, lease, or transfer of a firearm must be a licensed dealer. So in my opinion, the only way to really accomplish that is if there was a firearm registration, because there would be no other way to keep track of that. My question to you guys up here on the stage, do you think that would actually reduce gun violence and make our society safer?
I don't think it would make a difference.
No, why not?
The reason to register guns, to have a limited funnel through which to get them, such as an FFL, would make absolutely no difference to the people that want to commit the crimes. And I think that is, no matter what you propose, they're always going to find another way to get what they want to commit the crime they want.
Sure.
So how is that going to reduce the violence? If anything, I think the only thing that could happen is there's always going to be this group of people who are going to say, this is too much trouble for me to get a gun. And maybe, if anything, it will reduce, potentially, and it may not be true, but potentially reduce the amount of people that actually go out and get them because they don't want to go through the process or deal with the process, which means less people having guns, criminals have more victims. If anything, that could cause crimes to spike, but I don't see how it could be reduced.
Yeah, and it's funny, like when we look at states like Maryland, New York, Illinois, that have these like just ungodly processes for people to get a concealed carry permit, you know, they claim it's because they want their residents to have more training, right? And that's why they have a mandatory 8-hour, 16-hour, whatever long class. I don't think that's it. I think a normal person cannot take 16 hours out of their week to go sit in a classroom, right? And or pay hundreds of dollars to do it. So I think they purposely create stuff like this, not to say it's illegal. You can still do it, but they're just going to make it so difficult that the average person says, I just don't have time.
I also think part of the issue, I believe that those of us that are here probably know what's going on in New York, the approach of the Supreme Court to 19 states approach the Supreme Court to uphold the restrictions on carrying a firearm, whereas self-defense is not a good enough reason for someone to get a carry permit in the state of New York. And if you take a look at the list of those 19 states, some states of those states you wouldn't expect, like Pennsylvania, which is, when it comes to the Northeast, is one of the more gun-friendly states. But it's on the list to have New York uphold its restrictions on a carry permit. So that concerns me. I would expect California, Illinois, Maryland, Massachusetts, yes, New Jersey, are all on the list. But when you start to have liberal states, or at least less liberal states, join the conversation about restricting people from having a carry permit, what's going on here?
Eddie, what do you think?
Well, I was going to ask you to repeat the bill because you broke up.
Okay. So this is SB 204, and it restricts the sale and delivery of firearms. So what Gary Farmer is proposing is that, Eddie, if I wanted to sell you a firearm privately, which is totally legal, that we would have to bring that firearm to a federal firearms dealer, and I would have to give the gun to them. They'd sign it into their books, and then they would do the background check, the waiting period, and then they would sign the gun out to you.
Okay, so kind of a mixed bag on this one because I do that now just because obviously Florida is not a registration state.
Yep.
We don't register guns, but I just don't want anything in my chain of custody that, to somebody I met on Gunbroker. But I mean, obviously, like Joseph said, it's not going to help. that mother, what is it? Necessity is the mother of all inventions. If a criminal wants a gun, they're going to be able to find one. I promise you.
Yeah, it's interesting. Last night, I had a gentleman in my concealed carry class in Brandon that moved from South Africa a couple years ago. And he said he lived in South Africa when guns were legal, and he lived there, obviously, once they kind of took guns away. And I said, what was and maybe they didn't take all guns away, but they restricted handguns and all this other stuff. So I said, what happened after they banned the possession of these guns, banned concealed carry? Like, what was the outcome? And he said, good people didn't have guns, and criminals had a lot of guns. And he said, which we all know, right? Like, all gun owners, this is what we've been preaching forever. He said the police department in South Africa, they told everybody, you got to come bring your guns on this specific day. So thousands of guns were brought in. What building would you guys guess was broken into that night? He said,
that's hilarious.
It's hilarious. He said all the guns were stolen and they all just disappeared.
Wow. I wonder who took the payoff. But
yeah, I don't know. Was it the police? Was it just a bunch of enterprising criminals? Right. We don't know.
Well, I'll give you an example. I have a couple from New York, two of my students, they're doing private instruction.
Yep.
He tried to purchase a gun at my buddy's shop, hasn't switched his license over to Florida yet, doesn't own any property in Florida, so we told him no. He goes, well, I'd still like to take the classes. Okay, no problem. When we get to the range, he says to me, Eddie, I came loaded. And I'm thinking to myself, what is he talking about? After the class, he tried to get me to sell him guns. And I'm like, look, I'm not doing that. But if he made me the offer, imagine what he would make the offer to someone else.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know if you followed what's going on in South Africa. Everybody knows there are a lot of riots and so on and so forth, but there were videos capturing police officers loading up their police vans with merchandise and looting themselves. So it would not surprise me that they that some, I'm not saying all of them, and I'm not saying any of them. I have no facts to that extent. It wouldn't surprise me, however, if they do this to just normal merchandise. How
Sure.
enticing is a building full of guns?
Oh wow.
Yeah, that's crazy,
Yeah.
man. All right, so the second bill is SP 214, and this is the assault weapons and large capacity magazines, because we all know that is the problem with gun violence. It's not people committing suicide. The problem with gun violence is not criminals doing illegal, crazy stuff. The problem with gun violence is an inanimate object that is sitting in my gun safe right now. So let's read what this says. So prohibiting the sale or transfer of an assault weapon or large capacity magazine, prohibiting possession of an assault weapon or large capacity magazine, requiring certificates of possession. That'll be a tough one to enforce.
Good luck.
Yeah, good luck, dude. Like, I don't know what you're planning, how you're going to get people to comply with that, but they think they can do it. So what do you guys think up here? Let's hear from somebody new. Robert, Parker, what do you think about this this bill to ban assault weapons and large capacity magazines in Florida? Robert going once. Going twice. Oh, he just dipped out. He's like, no, don't talk to me. Tiffany, what do you think? Or Vinny, Troy, anybody?
I think they should do the same thing they did in Afghanistan. They should have, since they gave them so many of these weapons, I'm just wondering if they are restricted from using the high capacity magazines that were left behind, and if those guns were registered as well.
Yeah.
And they're not even citizens. So they really officially are not supposed to have any of those American manufactured and produced firearms.
You know what's
there?
You know what's funny, Joe? I wonder if when the Taliban uses these Colt AR-15s to commit an act of terror, I wonder if Colt manufacturing is going to get sued and be held liable for the actions of the Taliban.
Yeah,
That'll be the first step. And then the second step will be that they can no longer be used in Canada.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, Colt, Knights Armament, all those they left some good stuff out there.
And isn't it just funny, like that entire debacle with Afghanistan, you really just defeat your entire like agenda, your entire messaging about trying to get weapons that you call are dangerous, right? Getting these weapons out of the hands of dangerous people when you flat out gave them to the most dangerous organization on the planet. Idiots. Okay, so this next bill is SB 334. It's the sale and transfer of ammunition. Okay, this makes sense. So they're calling it Jamie's Law. It would require a background check for the sale or transfer of ammunition and provide some exemptions. We don't know what those exemptions are, but that seems really dumb to me. You guys can barely, it takes me like an hour when I buy a gun to go through the background check for a gun. They couldn't handle doing a background check every single time somebody tries to buy ammunition. It would just destroy the system, not to mention the fact that this would never stop criminals from doing crazy stuff. Troy, what do you think?
How are you going to stop the people that are recapping and making their own ammo?
True. They're probably
you make the primers harder to get.
Yeah.
But all these new laws just make it harder for us to get anything. It doesn't stop criminals.
Sure. So what's their agenda? Is their agenda to actually protect people, or is their agenda something else?
I think it's definitely something else. They're trying to make it so difficult that people don't want to go through the hassle.
Yeah, I agree, Jason.
And that's also a great way to see who's buying what, who has what, who, who's active gunners, who's purchasing ammunition on a regular basis in case, or for whatever list they want to have. Maybe they can't get you to register your firearms, but if they can have people have to run a background for any ammunition or firearm, then I mean that's just as good as registration, isn't it?
Yeah, good point.
What is the most common caliber bought? Is it a 9mm?
Yes.
For handguns?
If I had to make a guess, I would say 9mm.
Right, and that is one of the things that Biden is proposing to go after, is not to go after 9mm semi-automatics. So, to Tiffany's point, if you have the most popular firearm, the one way to get the most amount of gun owners and ammunition to track these people, so to speak, as Tiffany's mentioned, made a very good point, is take the most popular caliber and you'll capture in your net the most amount of fish.
Very true. Okay, so the next bill, let's see. This is actually a positive bill. This was proposed by Anthony Sabiti, and it would remove firearm regulation. So this is House Bill 6013, removes provisions authorizing seizure of firearms from persons in certain circumstances, prohibition on firearms ownership and possession until removal of firearms possession, and firearm ownership disability. So he's basically talking about the Florida red flag laws. This also covers the prohibition on people under the age of 21 from purchasing firearms. This also includes the bump stock ban and, again, the risk protection orders. Any thoughts?
Yes, it's positive. Let's not overthink it.
It's the
one positive bill in this whole thing.
Yeah, it always sucks, man. I was talking to one of my students the other day about it. I said, everybody in the room, do you think that they're going to be able to pass or take our guns away? And like 90% of the room was like, no, it'll never happen. And I was like, okay, but do you realize that every year in Florida, there are about 50 anti-gun bills that are proposed? 50. And there's about 3 or 4 pro-gun bills. There's only so long that we can hold on. If the mindset doesn't change, I don't know. They're going to ram some stuff through, man. And it's a little bit scary.
Now, Canada, I believe, is going for airsoft guns now.
Wow.
Canada is nuts, dude. Canada is nuts.
No, we know, but that is, if it's an indication of how far you could call it a monarchy system, since their prime minister can just go ahead and just make a declaration and no one can argue with it. It's a one man's word, no argument. We don't have it here. It's the only reason we haven't lost our rights yet, is because we have a different system. But that does not mean that that system is foolproof, and we know that very well. Obviously, that 21,000 gun laws, gun control laws or statutes?
Yeah, there's a lot.
20,000.
Hundreds of new ones added every year.
Yeah. And what is it doing? Absolutely nothing.
But that's a bigger issue, Joe. Like when I was reading through these new House bills, it's kind of comical to me, the things that they're proposing. Like one of the bills was a bill to make slavery illegal in the state of Florida. Isn't that already illegal? I don't understand. It's like these politicians think that by making the law, that's somehow going to stop human trafficking. Like making a law of a speed limit is going to stop people from speeding. People are going to do what they want to do, and your little bill doesn't seem to do much.
No. Oh, God. Stop slavery.
It's crazy, right? And you remember there was this congressman a couple years ago that was proposing like an anti-lynching bill. And I remember listening to this thinking, when was the last time anyone has been lynched in America? And isn't it already illegal to murder people? So why are we spending time, money, resources debating a anti-lynching bill? It's called murder. Nobody should be allowed to be killed unless you're like on death row, right? But it just seems like the goal is let's waste a lot of time so that, you know, look at this hand while this other hand is doing some shady stuff. Okay, so let's see. Looks like we've got another one by Gary Farmer. So this is safe storage of loaded firearms. So revising requirements for the storage or leaving of a loaded firearm by a person on a premises under his or her control and certain circumstances involving a minor, revising circumstances under which such a person commits a specified violation. You know, it does really sadden me how many stories we hear in the state of Florida and federally of children finding a loaded gun somewhere and either hurting themselves or another innocent person. What's the solution to that? What's the solution to keeping our children safe with guns?
Education.
Okay. So what do you mean by that, Eddie? Is it education for the kid? Is it education for the parent?
Both in some cases, but primarily the kid. Obviously, the parent is responsible for securing that firearm. I mean, the 790 states, we are responsible to make sure that no unauthorized person can get to our firearm. Now, the way I grew up in the thought where I was a pain in the butt when I was a kid, man. My dad had a closet full of guns, and he knew better. He knew the only way to get me completely desensitized to those things was to teach me and make me shoot until I got tired of shooting and didn't want to look at a gun.
Yeah.
So kind of in the same train of thought, I did it with my kids. Hey, I don't want you to ever be curious, and I want you to know what to do if you see one. Right?
Sure.
So I started teaching my kids young. The first time my daughter shot a gun, she was 9 years old.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's funny, Eddie, how many parents I have come into the class that tell me they don't want to teach their kids about guns. There's this false belief in people's minds that children have to be 12, 15, 17 years old to actually be able to learn about gun safety. My children were handling guns and learning about gun safety at the ages of 3 to 5. Okay, so, and still it's a very ongoing thing, right? But we have sharp knives in our kitchen drawer. And I said, this happened last night, and I said, ma'am, do you have sharp knives in your drawer? And she's like, yeah. I said, do you talk to your 5-year-old about the knives? What do you tell your daughter about that? And she goes, well, we tell her not to touch it. And I said, oh, okay. Do you have chemicals underneath your bathroom sink, kitchen sink, garage, laundry room? And she said, yeah. I said, have you ever talked to your daughter about not touching them, about not drinking them? And she's like, yeah. I said, do you have any like power tools in your garage? A chop saw, a chainsaw, whatever? Yeah. Do you talk to your kid about not touching it? Yeah. So why is a gun any different?
Right.
It's just a tool, and kids need to know what it is and what to do if they ever find one.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure we've all seen the Eddie Eagle videos. I'm not necessarily too keen on them, but being an NRA instructor, we teach it.
Yeah.
I put my spin on it. But ultimately, yeah, that's what a kid should do. You see a gun, go get an adult. I don't want you to touch it. But if you have to touch it, I'd rather you know how to handle it. That's just my train of thought.
You got to take away the curiosity.
Yeah.
So, I'm just thinking about the kid that was shot in Lithia, because that's where this bill stems from, right? And his dad is actually pro-gun, but his son was shot in the back of the head, killed dead by his friend who unlocked his buddy's, dad's door to use the bathroom. His dad's duty weapon was sitting on the, side table. They thought it would be funny to play a joke. They took the magazine, or the magazine was out, I believe.
Right.
But they did not clear the firearm or safety check it. So, like I said, he's pro-gun. He doesn't want anything, but he does say that statute about storing the firearm is very vague. So that's where that law actually was proposed from. Now, I do think that gun owners need to be held responsible for if somebody gets a hold of your gun, a child, and kills himself or another child, or in that instance where that the young lady was on the Zoom call and she was shot in the head by her 2-year-old. That was her boyfriend's gun that was left available in the home for that child to pick up, a loaded firearm. So I do think that those people need to be held accountable. To me, that's not an accident, that's negligence, and I do think that they need to be charged with manslaughter.
Yeah, so, I agree with these. You shouldn't get away with it.
In order to be charged with manslaughter, that statute does have to be a little bit clearer. And I'm obviously very pro-gun, but I also feel like in order to hold those people accountable, when they, go to court, they have to be able to say that they broke the law, right?
Yeah, but what's hard about it, Tiff, is that with the incident that happened in Lithia, so the law basically says that the firearm has to be secured, right? The gun was in a locked bedroom, and these children picked the lock. So it's kind of like having a gun inside of a gun safe, and then your kid going and Googling how to, pick a gun safe lock, how to listen and turn the little dial or whatever. And they do that for hours, for days. They finally figure it out, get access to a gun, do something stupid. Whose fault is that?
And I get what you're saying. I understand that. I'm just saying where this stemmed from. I'm not saying that case would have fell under this one, but there are a lot of firearm, what they call accidents, that I call, no, that's negligence. That is not an accident. An accident is I go to the range with my dad and we're shooting. What happened in Sarasota, a few years back at the range, that dad that shot his son. So that's a firearm accident. Okay. Not a child getting a hold of your firearm that was not properly secured and now somebody's dead. That's not an accident. That's negligent, and that person needs to be held accountable for not taking the proper steps to keep those firearms securely encased and away from unauthorized users.
I remember we spoke about this case in the room on the show, I want to say about a month ago.
Okay, probably.
Right. I mean, we spoke to it, but this goes back to, and again, I don't know who these people are dealing with, or it's kind of common sense in the sense where the first thing I ask a student of mine is, where do you intend to store this gun? Oh, in my nightstand. No, I don't recommend you do that. Right. I recommend, do you own a safe? Yes. Where's your safe? In my bedroom, and that's where the gun needs to be stored, not in your nightstand. All right, and I think that it's again education, and while it may not be included in the criteria that the Florida says we need to teach, I still make sure and cover it, because the last thing I want is one of my students having to deal with some kind of tragedy after I've already put a blessing on them and said, hey, yeah, this person's fit to carry a gun and can do it safely. So I make sure that I cover things that are not necessarily needed in the state of Florida, but I cover it because I want gun safety is a passion of mine. It's like it's obviously common sense. I mean, yes, the gun cannot.
Not common sense, though.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's common sense.
And
I think the part where I make the mistake is assuming everybody has common sense.
Yes, and not only that, it's great that you teach them. Just because you teach somebody something, it doesn't mean that they're going to listen to you. That's
That's
also
true.
right. So we do our best. We can only do so much. I mean, look at how many times we talk about, hey, do a beginner's course. Don't just stick with the one class and then get your carry permit
Right.
and then carry and not know anything else. You need additional training. But guess what? There's a very, very small percentage of people that go and get additional training because they just don't want to listen. They don't want to put in the time and the extra effort. So while it's good to let people know about that, and everybody definitely needs to know about safe firearm storage, not everybody is going to listen to that. And a lot of people just think, it'll be fine, or, no one will get it. So yeah, it's one of those things that you really have to look at. Like I said, that case in Lithia, the firearm was behind a locked door, so that's a little bit different.
Yeah, in my
than the
opinion,
other-
that gun is secured. If somebody's gonna pick a
Agreed.
lock, then what the hell do you want me to do? Like somebody
Agreed.
mentioned on here, I think it was Patty, said, so if somebody breaks in and steals my car and then runs somebody over, am I liable for that? Well, no, of course not, right? Because they stole the car. But if you're just leaving a handgun laying around, there's a degree of liability there. So
100%.
100%. But there's a lot of people on YouTube right now in the YouTube comments saying, the government should not regulate any of that. And, while I agree with that to a degree, I don't need the government telling me I need this kind of safe. My gun has to be in this place. The ammo needs to be separate, all that stuff. But I'm also smart enough to make sure my guns are locked up away from my kids, right?
Right. I mean, hell, I'm an empty nester. My kids are all out of the house, and my guns are still locked in a closet, dead bolted, inside a safe. I don't, I got maintenance people that come into my apartment. I don't need them getting to them.
Very true, right? You simply never know. Go, Joe.
Yeah.
How old was the kid in Lithia? The kid that shot and the kid that was shot?
I think there was a year age difference.
Yeah, they were both 15, or else the one that died was 15 and the other one was 16 years old.
Isn't there a law anyway in the state of Florida that for the under age 16, you cannot they cannot have access to firearms? And I'm not blaming the adult necessarily, although I do think that wasn't a full attempt at keeping a firearm safe by not clearing the chamber, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, but I wasn't there and I don't have all the facts. But as we know it, there is a law that says that in the presence of 16-year-olds in the home, there are more stringent storage requirements than for someone who is over 16. Am I mistaken in that?
I'm pretty sure it's 18. The federal law is
right
to keep the firearms out of the hands of minors. So I've never heard 16. I'm pretty sure it's under the age of 18.
Because and the reason I say that is because Amy and I went away overnight, and it was the first time we left the 17-year-old twins at home. And I read about that, and it said that under 16 we cannot. So over 16 we can.
Okay.
So I think we need to look at it. But either way, so I'm saying 16, whether it's 18 or 16, if those boys were 15, that firearm was not secure. Because at 15, you're dumb enough and smart enough at the same time to pick a lock and to push the envelope. That's what 15-year-olds do. There has got to be nothing. And again, we all make mistakes. But this kind of mistake, you can't excuse it the same way that you can excuse leaving a stapler on your table. Yes, can it hurt somebody? Can it take an eye out? Can it? But a stapler, nobody's going to put you in jail because a kid was dumb enough to use a stapler on his friend. A gun's a whole different story.
Yeah, good
so
point.
I agree with Tiffany.
Yeah, so James on YouTube says, so when a person breaks into my house with a gun, I have to ask him to wait till I unlock my safe to get to my gun to defend myself. Obviously there's like, You know, that's a little bit of a joke there. But you should have very quick access to your gun, right? I mean, with technology today, it is very possible to have your firearms locked in a gun safe and also be able to open that gun safe and access the gun in microseconds, in a second or two. So this concept that it has to be one or the other, my guns are either locked up, which means I can never get to them, or they're just laying out in the open, it's just false. You can have your guns secured while at the same time having very quick access in an emergency.
My question is, having it on your person inside your house, what would that be considered? Because naturally to the anti-gunners, I would believe that at some point, they're not even going to want to allow that on your property or in your house to have that. Unless, of course, you don't have any kids or kids above a certain age. What is that considered? Having it on your person?
Firearm is on your person. That meets the definition of securely encased. Is that correct, Ryan?
No, if the gun's on you, then the firearm is on you. It's secured and it's in your manual possession, right?
Right.
But what does the bill say in terms of storage? Is there language in there about that? About having it on your person as part of the securely encased or storage?
So let me answer.
Ryan, if I can, I can answer this.
Go.
So Joe struck some curiosity in me, and he's right. The state of Florida does not require your firearm to be stored in any particular fashion. In most cases, however, if a minor under the 16 years of age is around, then your firearm must be on your body or in a location so close to you that you could not retrieve it easily and quickly as if it were on your body, or must be secured in a locked box or container in a location that a reasonable person would believe to be secure, or by placing a trigger lock on the loaded firearm as required by Florida Statute 790.174.
Okay, there you go. Okay, so let's keep running through these bills. We're going to run out of time here.
Yes.
Okay.
So SB 210, prohibiting record keeping related to firearms or firearm owners. So this is again by the legendary Gary Farmer. So repealing provisions relating to the prohibition of registration of firearms and the treatment of certain electronic records. So this would basically allow the state of Florida to keep an electronic database of who owns guns, which is scary. Scary. What do you guys think?
Yeah. Obviously, that's a big no-no. So, but Gary Farmer is a big turd, in my opinion.
This guy's an idiot, man.
I second that.
So, how do we deal with people like this? Because he's going to just keep proposing these bills, right? He might not be able to get this stuff through today. It might not happen tomorrow. What do we do as the Second Amendment community to spread the word and to try to launch because we're on the defensive. I think we can all agree with that, right? The Second Amendment community is relatively on the defensive. We are getting attacked from all sides. We are getting made to be criminals and terrorists in the eyes of the general public here in America. And I think that's our goal, right? I've been saying this for years. So how do we as a Second Amendment community, how do we take the offensive without being crazy and defend our rights?
We vote this guy out. This guy's got to get voted out. I cannot believe that he's been elected with the beliefs that he has. I mean, the 2A, they have to start petitioning and showing that, hey, we're not the bad guys, but this guy, he he's got some skeletons in his closet. I'm sure some pack somewhere can find them. But
you think he killed a hooker or something like that, Michelle, and push her in the Everglades?
Yeah, maybe he's got some drugs in his closet somewhere. But he's got to get rid. The only way we can get rid of this Farmer idiot is to get him out of office. Unfortunately, That's the only way. That's the only way we have. The only stance that we have.
Yeah, I agree. Troy, what do you think?
We just got to share all your videos. Keep sharing.
Man, I like you, Troy. Good job.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I think it's really spreading the word. And also I think it's who you know, the anti-gun people, the people that are in the middle, their only representation of the Second Amendment is the gun owners that they are meeting in everyday life, right? Like my neighbor next to us is not, they own a gun, but he is definitely not a gun person. He's very hesitant. I'm sure he kind of supports a lot of these ideas. And it's really important that when I talk to him about these topics, that we have a positive debate, that I share my ideas. I let him share his anti-gun ideas or his concepts of how to reduce gun violence without me making him feel dumb or me attacking him, right? Because I want the conversation to continue. We have to remember that just like we are representing Christ to the people that we meet every day, which is hard for me because I do a lot of dumb stuff, but we're also representing the Second Amendment and what it means to be a gun owner to everybody. So when we're doing dumb stuff, aggressive stuff, that's making all of these people in the middle feel like, you know what, if that's a representation of what a gun owner is, maybe I don't want to be a gun owner.
Hey, Ryan, are you sure your neighbor is afraid of the guns, or is he afraid of you mowing your lawn in those leopard print Speedos you were wearing in that video?
You know, we never know. We never know.
That was a great video, though. I will say that. You got the point across.
Loved it.
It's hysterical. I showed my husband. I couldn't stop laughing.
Yeah, good. I haven't watched that video in a long time, so when I reposted, I watched it and I was like, "Damn, Ryan, you're a funny guy, man. This is good stuff." All right, so HB 199, assault weapons and large capacity magazines. So again, this is a bill. It's probably very similar to the Senate bill or the bill that was proposed in the Senate, but this one has been proposed in the House. Let's see, SB 204, sale and delivery of firearms. This again by Gary Farmer. Maybe I talked about this. Is this the one I already talked about, or is this a separate one? Sale, 204, so I did duplicate that one. Okay, so Anthony Sabini has proposed again a constitutional carry bill in the state of Florida. So remove the requirement that a license to carry a firearm is required in order to carry such a firearm. Limits areas in which concealed carry of a firearm is prohibited. Okay, so that's cool. Revises criminal penalties, revises provisions related to the carry of concealed weapons. What are your guys' thoughts on constitutional carry? Will it pass, or is this another year that it's not going to go through?
I don't think it's going to go through. Honestly, I don't think the state wants to lose out on all the money that they're going to get. Getting the money that they take for permits and stuff. Not to mention, if they do constitutional carry, it's going to kill your business. Sorry, Ryan and Tiff.
Actually, it's actually not true, though. In states that do have constitutional carry, people still do a lot of firearm training. So now they got their permit. They're not paying that money towards maybe a concealed carry permit. They're getting training. So a lot of the states that do have constitutional carry actually still have a high number of people paying for firearm training. So it's just a little bit of a shift, but it wouldn't kill the business per se.
That's thought. No.
Yeah, my thought on constitutional carry, just because it is Florida and it is a tourist state, and we have so many people coming from other countries to Disneyland and stuff. I've said this, for years. I just see it hard to pass that constitutional carry because those other countries where people are coming, that firearms aren't even, people don't even own guns, let alone carry guns. I think it would be a big shocker for them to see people walking around with guns on their side and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So,
but you're talking more about the open carry, right? We're talking about the constitutional carry, which I'm sure there's a provision in here for open carry. We don't see the text of the bill yet.
There usually is. Yeah, there usually is, though, that open carry is also, that it's, open carry is also allowed, like in Arizona. But so that's my thoughts on it as a such a tourist state that these big companies like Walt Disney World and stuff would really,
yeah. So are you saying, do you think like some of these big corporations in Florida are actually going to start lobbying against some of this pro-gun stuff because they think it'll like negatively affect the tourism industry?
I think they do already. I think that they're plunking money that, we just have no idea. So I think they're backing all these politicians already in the anti-gun world.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Because even a small amount of revenue lost by these big companies can be a very big amount, right? All right, so let's see. We got HB 73, and this is to modify the Stand Your Ground statute, use or threaten use of deadly force. Removes provisions stating that person who use or threaten the use of deadly force other than deadly force do not have a duty to retreat before using or threatening to use such force. Prohibits the use of a deadly force by a person who knows that he or she can avoid using deadly force with complete safety by retreating. Removes provisions stating person using or threatening to use deadly force does not have a duty to retreat and has the right to stand his or her ground. Holy crap, this is a rough one. Repeals provisions relating to immunity from criminal prosecution and civil action for justified use or threatened use of force. So this is actually affecting two major statutes. And would prohibit you from defending yourself in a physical altercation, as well as prohibiting you from using a firearm in a life or death self-defense situation.
No way. It's got to go too. I don't think that one will pass.
So I'm supposed to stand there and let somebody stab me. Yeah, right.
Well, and it's interesting, the language here, it says that prohibits the use of deadly force by a person who knows that he or she can avoid using deadly force with complete safety by retreating. Like, what does that mean?
So that means if somebody comes up and stabs you, and it's not a lethal stab, but you see them coming at it again, you can pull your gun and shoot them, and then you're in the clear because you're not able to run away.
Yeah, and the challenge is that this would really open it up to a lot of debate on what is a reasonable belief of the ability to retreat, right? Like, who makes that decision? That would just be a tough one.
Wouldn't this also put the responsibility back onto the gun owner if it went to trial instead of the prosecution? It would go on to the defendant. So
you're talking about the burden of proof shift that changed, and I think 2017 is when it shifted. So back prior to July of 2017, the burden of proof on a self-defense shooting was on the shooter. So if Tiffany and I were out at dinner and a bad guy came up with a knife, tried to stab me, I pulled out a gun and shot and killed the bad guy, it is up to me to prove that I had no other option but to shoot that guy, which is crazy. Because if I'm dealing cocaine, I'm innocent until proven guilty, right? But for some reason, it's totally different in a self-defense situation in these people's minds.
It just disgusts me how they want to limit what I can do to defend myself.
And besides, all the talking that we do as responsible gun owners, we always, what's the first question you ask on every scenario that you go through, Ryan? How could this situation be avoided?
Yeah.
So the education that we are bringing to the table speaks to that anyway, which goes to show that those of us who are either teaching or training to be safe and responsible have no desire whatsoever to make or to speed up the worst day of our life by pulling out a firearm or to threaten to use deadly force. We don't want to. We will avoid this at every possible cost anyway.
I think responsible gun owners will attempt to avoid it. But I also know, because I owned a gun store for so long and I actually see all these comments on YouTube and Facebook and stuff, that there's a very large segment of the population that still believes their first response is just to pull out a gun and shoot. And those are the people, in my opinion, that have never met anybody that has been involved in a self-defense shooting. I used to believe back in the day that because of Florida's stand your ground law, that if I was in a life or death situation, I can pull out my gun and I can just shoot. The reality is less than 5% of people who use a gun in self-defense in the state of Florida and claim a stand your ground shooting. So they're asking for immunity and they're saying this was justified under the law. Less than 5% will be granted the immunity under the law because they think they understand what the stand your ground statute means and how it's interpreted, but they find out very quickly that you actually didn't have a right to use a gun. So it goes back to a very big lack of education and people that don't understand that even if you're justified in using a gun in self-defense, it is going to change your life forever. And it is always something that we should avoid if possible. But if it's not possible, then that's why we have the Second Amendment, to defend ourselves, to defend our country and our society from tyranny, oppression, and loss of life.
Which also goes to the point of why, for me personally, the constitutional carry conversation is not so cut and dry. Because if only 5% of the people that are in a self-defense situation, and let's assume that these people have a carry permit, and so they were supposed to go through the course and know the statute and act accordingly, and only 5% actually act accordingly. You now allow people who don't have any training, just have constitutional carry or open carry, or allowed to carry without a permit. What are the chances this is actually going to be better?
Yeah, you know, Joe, it's really funny. I had a woman in my class yesterday who took the online concealed carry course, and she said her husband took his concealed carry class with a competitor, and she said he was like listening as she was watching the videos and stuff, and she said eventually he came over and he started watching, and he was like, oh my gosh, I didn't learn any of this. Like he said, my concealed carry class was so generic. It just covered like just super generic stuff because frankly, most instructors don't have a deep understanding of any of these concepts. So he ended up watching the entire course. He was at my class last night and he's like, I learned so much. This is unbelievable. I had no idea that I couldn't do X, Y, and Z. And, you know, I don't believe that anything should be mandatory. The concealed carry class should not be mandatory, but it is up to people. If you really want to be a safe, responsible concealed carry permit holder, you got to seek out the proper information and make sure you really understand what you can and can't do. Timothy?
Completely agree.
Yeah, welcome, man. What do you think about this topic?
I'm just blown away, but I'm not surprised. It seems like more and more states are starting to jump on the anti-Second Amendment bandwagon. Unfortunately, I'm still stuck up here in the horrible state of Maryland.
Dude.
And it's pretty much impossible to get anything done here, no matter how much training you've went through. It's like the state police up here are in charge of issuing permits. And the only way to get one is you have to be current law enforcement, law enforcement, corrections, private investigator, or you have to own a certain type of business to where they deem that that you're justified in being armed while you're in your business.
Because
myself,
you're only in danger if you have a business, right?
Yeah. Oh, but if you're a realtor, you can also have a carry permit up here in Maryland.
Realtors should have guns, but so should the single mom, so should the soccer mom, and so should the dad. Like, one of the things that really pisses me off, I think it's the state of New York. If you want to apply for a permit in New York, you have to show regular bank deposits of $10,000 or more. So if your business is not doing great or it hasn't grown yet, and maybe you're only depositing $8,000 a week, you're not in danger. But somebody who's depositing $12,000 a week, they're obviously in danger and they need a gun.
It's the same stipulations here in Maryland, like me. You know, I'm a single dad. I have 2 kids. But, I mean, regardless of all the training I've went through and being a veteran myself, none of that matters because I don't own my own business and I don't meet any of the other requirements that the state police have put into effect here. So I'm at the will of all the criminals that want to run rampant through the state of Maryland, and we all, I'm sure, well know what goes on here on a daily basis.
Dude, I went to a conference in Baltimore like 2 weeks or 10 days after the Baltimore riots, and it's a scary city, dude. It is a very scary city. I would think anybody there should be voting to pass some more pro-gun laws. Extremely dangerous, extremely violent. Tiffany, for some reason, booked me a hotel, and I was at the bottom floor, and I could see the parking lot, and I thought, man, I'm going to get raped and murdered in this state. It was interesting.
Let's be honest, Ryan. I don't think rape is ever something that you need to worry about.
I'm a very attractive man, and you just never know.
Maybe he burned the Speedos.
In Baltimore, they can thank Elijah Cummings for that.
Oh yeah.
But the biggest issue is that they're not talking about the drive-bys in Chicago that kill 8, 9, 10, and 11-year-old kids. They're not talking about the violence in Atlanta where they're taking over an entire neighborhood and are still there.
Yeah.
And it's the good guy who's in trouble, just like the Pulse Club here in Orlando. The FBI was called because he was a threat, and his own family called, and they investigated him, and they just let him go. And a year later, he went in and killed all them people.
You know, it's really funny because these politicians all they all claim, one of these bills, I was listening to an interview of the politician that proposed this bill, and he said, I have a responsibility to the 49 victims of Pulse. And I agree. Pulse was a very scary thing. It was very sad, and that stuff shouldn't happen. And I agree. We do have a responsibility to figure out how to prevent stuff like that from happening. You guys have heard the story. We had a guy that I truly believe was planning an active shooting, came into our gun store and was saying very scary things. I won't tell the whole story, but he said, show me how to use this AR-15. If I walked into a building and there was 30 cows, how do I kill all the cows really quickly in this building? And I was like, what the hell are you talking about? Why would there be cows in a building? Why are you trying to shoot the cows? What is wrong with you? And he goes, would I just hold the gun and hold the trigger and go like this? So we kicked the guy out. I called Tampa police and said, hey, this guy is going to do something. I got his picture. I got video, got audio. What's next? And they said, you got to call the FBI. So called the Tampa FBI field office, and they said, did he commit a crime? And I said, I don't know. You're the people in charge here. And they said, there's really nothing that we can do. He hasn't done anything illegal yet. And I thought, you idiots. If this guy goes and shoots up a school, make sure you understand I am going to get on TV and say that guy came into my gun store. I called the police and I called the FBI, and you guys told me there was nothing you can do. So if that happened to me, that also happened at a gun store in Orlando with the Pulse nightclub shooter, and the FBI did nothing. So how often is this happening where we, the gun community, are saying, hey, you might want to go look into this guy because he's doing some shady shit, but they're just turning a blind eye?
The thing about the Pulse nightclub shooter, though, if you do look at him, he was a security guard, I believe, so he had a clean record. Number two, if you look who his father was a diplomat that was working with the FBI in Washington, D.C. So that's why, yes, if he was on their radar, he got bumped off real quick because of who his daddy was.
True. Yeah, it's interesting. Okay, so we got.
I want to know.
The gun shop owner did turn. One of the gun shop owners wouldn't sell him anything, correct?
Yeah, the one in Orlando, I'm pretty sure, I might be wrong here, but I'm pretty sure he refused to sell the Pulse nightclub shooter a gun because he just felt that something was like off. Something didn't seem legit. Right. Which is funny. Exactly. I was at a gun store recently and they were saying, you know, I don't have a right to not sell you a gun. No, you have a right. Like we had people consistently come into the gun store that, you know, we just said, I'm not selling you a gun. You can go somewhere else and buy a gun. But you know, you smell like marijuana. I am not selling somebody a gun that I can smell marijuana coming off of you. Right? Mario, how are you, buddy? What do you think about our topic?
Yeah, I definitely agree with a lot of that. Instead of, you see how they have red flag laws for gun owners.
Yep.
They should do some kind of orange or red flag law on people who, for example, like you said with that customer that went into your gun store.
Yeah.
And the FBI should have done something. There should have been a law to prevent that from happening or anything like that from happening.
Sure, and it's such a fine line, right? Because red flag laws are not oriented towards a gun owner, right? Like red flag laws, I think, were created to try to stop people like the guy that came into my gun store, the Pulse nightclub shooter, and the what was that one down south? The Marjorie Stoneman Douglas shooter, right? I think that's why they're created. The challenge is red flag laws are now being used to manipulate the system to take guns out of the hands of innocent people that may have done or said something stupid. Like I had a guy in the concealed carry class the other day. I asked him, why do you want to carry a gun? I ask everybody that question. And I don't remember exactly what he said, but he made like some stupid, inappropriate joke. And everybody in the room laughed. And then I said, do you know what a red flag law is? And he was like, no. And I said, well, what you just said is enough for the government to come and confiscate your guns for a year. And he was like, oh, really? It was just a joke. And I said, yeah, this is the way the system works now. So, you know, I don't think that guy has any ill intent, but I think he made a dumb joke, just like I make dumb jokes all the time. But if he made that dumb joke at work, very possible for him to get fired and get his guns taken away.
Yeah, some people need to realize that the government, they don't have that sense of humor.
It's kind of like saying, don't say the word bomb, like you're the bomb in an airport.
Yeah, good point. Because you just never know, right? We were going to Canada one time, and, you know, our family, we're like a very, very pro-gun. Like, guns are a part of our daily conversation and stuff, right? So we were going there for Tiffany's brother's wedding, and we have to go through their customs. So, like, I'm talking with the kids as we're walking towards the customs thing, and I was like, listen, guys, you cannot talk about guns. Don't mention a gun. Don't mention a knife. Don't talk about any of that. This is extremely serious. No jokes. Just stand still and be quiet. So we walk up. Tiff and I are standing in front of their customs person who's asking us, like, why are you in the country? How long are you going to be here? Whatever. And Lincoln goes, Dad, you got any weapons? I was like, damn, dude, shut up. Like, I went through all the other litany of items, but because I didn't use the word weapons, he still thought it was okay to ask me that question. Hilarious. So thankfully, the Border Patrol person did not perform a full body cavity search on me, and she let us through, but it could have been bad.
What irritates me is who the hell they think they are that they can violate our Second Amendment.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's interesting to see how far our rights have gone and what the founding fathers really believed and what's happening now.
Because the politicians always feel that they know what's better for us than we do.
Yeah, very true.
I was watching the hearings today, and if you listen to them, and, one party was really going after him, but the other party, their main thing is that, and they kept mentioning this, and I noticed that they kept using the word power. We have the power. And that is a red flag to me as to where this country is going.
Unfortunately, what has been happening for the last 2 years is a massive power grab. And it is going to be very difficult for us to ever get these people to relinquish this power. But I agree. And, this is a bigger issue than this topic right now. But they are taking tyrannical. They are lost control. They have a bloodthirst for more and more power. And I frankly don't know what to do to stop it.
I'm just waiting for 2022. If the Republicans take back the House, I'm waiting for the new speaker to just grab the gavel out of Pelosi's hand and whack her in the head with it. That would be awesome. Play whack-a-mole with her.
Hey, I had a question about OC spray.
Okay, go ahead, Scotty.
When can I use OC spray legally?
Yeah, so you're allowed to use a non-lethal device like that to stop a person's use of unlawful force against you. So if somebody is using unlawful force, so they're punching you, they're threatening to punch you, they're something of that nature, right? Then we have a right to use force, not including deadly force, to stop the attacker's unlawful use of force. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes total sense. That's why I carry it. That's, other than getting away from the situation, my first line of defense will be the OC spray before I have to pull the gun.
On that same note, there was some talk. The OC spray came up in the concealed carry group, not the women's group, but this was a while ago, saying that the pepper spray is fine, having the UV spray is fine, but you cannot have tear gas in Florida. And so mine is triple threat. I've got the pepper spray, the tear gas, and the UV.
Yeah, I don't know if that's true. I don't know if a court has ruled on that or not. I can tell you guys from personal experience, I have been sprayed with regular pepper spray, and I've been sprayed with the pepper spray with tear gas, and that tear gas is no freaking joke. It really hurts. So for Tiffany carries the one with pepper spray and with tear gas. If I needed Paisley to carry pepper spray, then she would carry the one with tear gas.
Yeah, I
what name brand is that?
In this one club, I was always getting sprayed, or we'd spray the patrons coming out, drunk, fighting, so we'd have to spray, and we had the big canisters.
Yeah.
Usually throughout the night, maybe 1.5 canister gone.
Oh my gosh,
and
that's not a club I want to go to, man.
No, it's not a nice club. It's where the old Dallas Bull used to be. This club, they were required by Hillsborough County to have at least 7 to 9 armed guards outside.
Oh my!
That's how bad it was. A lot of gang members, they go there.
Hey Timothy, the name of the pepper spray UV tear gas combo is Sabre, SABRE.
Yeah, Sabre Pepper Gel is the one with the pepper spray and with the tear gas, and it's like kind of more of a gel instead of a mist, which is pretty cool, especially if there's any like wind in the area.
I was also wondering who in here in this room actually carries the liability insurance through, whether it be USCCA or something like that.
I
I
do.
do.
I carry USCCA. I attend their training courses. Um, they're, I'm at the range on a regular basis. What he was saying about Anthony Sabatini is great. I purchased guns online, and I used to have them shipped to a pawn shop in Claremont, and I had no issues. And I was talking bad about Nikki Pride one day, and I didn't even leave the parking lot, and the pawn shop called me and told me that I had been flagged and that my gun wasn't approved. And I called Anthony Sabatini, and in 3 days I went and picked up my gun. But Anthony
So, but did they
Sabatini,
say why you were flagged?
they did not. They did not, and I had purchased several firearms from the pawn shop in Claremont.
Yeah.
But I had this young kid, and I was talking about Nikki Fried, and I don't know how she got elected when Ron DeSantis got elected, and I just got a flag, and I called Anthony Sabatini, and three days later he called me back and told me to go pick up my gun.
Interesting.
I've talked bad about Nikki Fried before too, but I have my gun shipped to a gun shop actually. But we always talk about how bad she is, and it's awfully funny and ironic that for being a stout, Democrat and anti-gun, that she's in charge of giving out the gun permits. But I've never been flagged.
You can carry a knife too, but the law, the way it's written, it's so vague. It doesn't tell you if you can carry a pocket knife or if you can carry a Bowie knife.
Yeah, it has to be
You can't conceal a knife that is over 4 inches for the blade. That is what I was told by an attorney.
Yeah, so there's a restriction on blade length. I'm pretty sure that it is a knife is not considered a weapon when it's under 2.5 inches. But there is a certain blade length size, I think 3.5 inches, that you do not have to have a carry permit to have. But if it's over that certain size, whether it's 3.5 or 4, I'm not really sure. But if it's over that size, you do have to have a concealed carry permit.
I carry all three. I carry the pepper spray, I carry a knife, and I carry my weapon.
Yeah, smart. So I have U.S. Law Shield. We recently canceled our USCCA, and we went to U.S. Law Shield. But I think you are pretty crazy not to have some type of legal financial plan in place for a self-defense shooting. Because the bottom line is, I have a lot of Florida state prosecutors that come and attend my concealed carry course over the last 10 years. And every time I find one of them in my class, like, the entire class shifts. It goes from me trying to answer people's questions and help them to I pause all that. And it's like I drill them with questions for as long as I can keep their attention, because that's like a good opportunity to learn and get a good, like, in-depth insight into their world, right? And it is shocking to hear the crazy stuff. One of the craziest things a Florida state prosecutor said to me is she said, Ryan, after a self-defense shooting, we just want a win-win, right? And I was like, oh, okay. So my mind, when I hear a win-win, you want the truth. So if somebody's in a self-defense shooting, you want them to get justified immunity. They go home and the bad guy's dead, right? That's a win-win in my mind. And she said, oh, no, win-win is we want to keep our conviction rates high. This is what she said to me in a group with 20 plus people, right? We want to keep our conviction rates high. So we want justice for the person that died, regardless of whether they're a criminal scumbag or not. And we want a reduced sentence for the shooter. And I was like, so you're not even, like, concerned about whether this was a real justified shooting or not? And she was like, we just want a win-win. That, hey, Ryan, really pissed me off.
If you don't mind me asking, is there a main reason you switched from, I'm with USCCA, and my membership is coming up in November, and I was looking at U.S. Law Shield. What was the main reason why you switched?
There's a lot of reasons. I'm not probably going to go into it right now, but you know, the big thing is their prices keep going up. And frankly, I think the U.S. Law Shield provides me more value. I don't need all the fluff that USCCA is providing. What I need is the value in the legal protection. Does that make sense?
Yep, I gotcha.
Shane says,
yeah, you don't exactly need all the training because after all, it's what you do. So,
sure. Yeah. And I honestly have never once logged into their training website. Never once. Okay, let's see. Last bill here is HB 19. It says firearm restrictions pursuant to court findings of risk protection order. So let's see. Requires certain orders affecting a person's ability to purchase a firearm to be entered into a specific database within a specific period. Prohibits attempted violations of risk protection orders. So this seems like it's going to strengthen the red flag risk protection orders in the state of Florida, which is really, really scary. They're already very vague. If you guys have read my book, Florida Concealed Carry Law, I have an entire section in there about the Florida red flag. And one of the sections we break down, what are the requirements to get red flagged in the state of Florida? And it is very vague, very vague. So one of the requirements is a recent purchase of a firearm or ammunition. That's enough for a person to get red flagged. It doesn't say purchasing a gun and then threatening to murder somebody. It just says a recent purchase of a firearm or ammunition. That is why I believe red flag laws are definitely not okay, because they are just too vague. It's too vague. What do you guys think?
Sounds like they don't want anybody to purchase anything.
I think it goes back to the topic at the very beginning of this show, right? Is that part of the goal is you're allowed to have guns, okay? You hear the anti-gun people say this all the time, right? We're not trying to attack the Second Amendment. We want you to have guns, but we want to make it so difficult, so convoluted, so complicated and scary that the average person just says, I don't want to do this. I have had students take my concealed carry class before, go through all the trainings, and then I see them at Publix or Home Depot or whatever a year later, and I'm like, did you get your permit? And they're like, no, I never did it because this is too much of a responsibility. I think that's part of the goal. I think that's part of the strategy. Make it too difficult, and people will give up.
Yeah, pretty soon they're going to make it to where you're going to have to get a loan in order to get one.
Again, I think that's part of the goal. Down in Puerto Rico, and I've heard in New York City, only way to get a permit is to actually file a lawsuit, is to apply for a permit in New York City, get denied. Then once you get denied, hire a law firm to file a lawsuit to cost you $5,000 to $10,000, and then they will issue you a concealed carry permit. That's how people like Donald Trump were able to get a concealed carry permit in New York City, Manhattan, whereas millions of other people are denied that right. And, I don't know about you guys, but I thought our rights were individual rights granted to us by God, and they were not dependent on the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, or our financial abilities.
I agree.
Just like any law, they can say interpret it one way, and it's going to be their own way.
Sure.
I think a big part of it is they see people have that need, have that want to get the guns, and they make it as difficult as they possibly can. So normal Joes like you and I can't afford to have the guns. Or they use it as a big money scheme. The lawyers get rich, the courts get rich, the state gets rich.
And in the meantime, the bad guys still get guns.
Bingo. It like they. I actually had an attorney tell me one time that laws are not made for the criminals. Let that sink in.
The problem is our Constitution means nothing anymore. It doesn't have to be just a Second Amendment. The mandates that Sleepy Joe's trying to pass and stuff are trying to enforce. Our Constitution means absolutely nothing.
I'm going to disagree with you. I think the Constitution still means what it means, right? But these politicians are so thirsty, politicians and corporations, right? Because I think these media companies are definitely very much to blame. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, I mean, they are way too powerful. They have a tremendous... Do you guys see they're running ads right now? I've seen ads on social media about why Section 203 is good for us. Section 203, which is what prevents people like us from filing a lawsuit against these media tech companies, it is not good for us. But they're already starting their campaign to brainwash the uneducated portion of the population of why Section 203 or 230, whatever it is a positive thing. The Constitution means what it means. And the Constitution was created to tell the federal government what they are allowed to do. That was the purpose of the Constitution. But now, part of what politicians have been doing to our society for centuries now is trying to make sure that we are dumb, broke, and afraid. Because if the American population is dumb, broke, and afraid, then we have to suckle on the teat of the government. And that's why they want to keep passing out all these stimulus checks. Tiffany said, like, we got a deposit or whatever from the U.S. Treasury for some amount of money the other day, $750 for our kids or something. And it's like, what the hell is this for? I don't need money for my kids. Why are you just depositing money into my account? It's because they wanted to get us suckling and dependent on their money. And she said, what do we do with this money? I said, we're going to invest it and we're going to make more money so that we are not dependent on anyone but ourselves.
Well, the other thing is Florida kind of did that where, what was it? It was Amendment 4, convicted felons. Oh, vote yes for convicted 4 or for Amendment 4. The problem is nobody actually read that bill. So everybody voted yes, give the convicted felons their voting rights back. Well, they failed to read the fact that all stipulations of their sentence must be completed in order to have their rights restored. That meant probation. That meant all court fines. And now they're all screaming boo-hoo. Well, you didn't read the bill. You went by what you heard on a commercial.
Yeah, I agree. All right, guys. Go ahead, Joe.
I'll just end on this. If you take a look at the states, Maryland, New York, New Jersey, California, the opportunity that people, the gun lovers or Second Amendment, pro-Second Amendment people have, the hoops they have to jump through to get any of the rights that we have here, you can see that they are going backwards. They keep losing inch by inch by inch, and they are starting way, way behind the rest of us. This is an indication of where we're going if we don't make sure that we do read the bills and we do know what candidates stand for and hold them accountable to it. That's what we're up against. That is where we're headed, and worse. So let that be a clear indication of where we don't want to go, and start doing what we can to represent our community as a bunch of people who are good for the community, not dangerous for the community. And we have a lot of work to do that, especially you, Ryan. You've got a big following. You read these comments all the time from people that are on, and you see that as much as we want to represent the community properly, we have a lot of people within our community, no disrespect to their love for the Second Amendment. We need that love, but we don't need the negligence and stupidity.
Yes.
So if we want to keep what we have, which we're going to struggle to do anyway, then we need to start to work on the people within our community even before we work on the people outside of the community.
Yeah, I agree. I think we all have to grow up and understand that we are at war. And you have to pick a freaking side. Okay, so we are at war. Everything we are doing and saying right now is either helping our cause or it's hurting the cause. And we have to be out there not fighting with weapons. This is the mistake. I think that day is coming, frankly. And I think it's coming very, very rapidly. But at the moment, at least, our goal is to win the hearts and the minds of the people that are in the middle. We need more gun owners. We need more people to understand the value of the Second Amendment. Why the founding fathers truly believed that gun ownership was not a right for just Americans. They believed it was a right granted to all people on the planet by God. Because they saw what these governments were doing to their people when the people didn't have the ability to defend themselves. We've got to go out there and really fight to educate those people and spread the message. And we also have to have a plan. So if somebody disagrees with us, we have to be able to still have a conversation with them and not have it turn super negative. You're an effing idiot. Like we see it all the time in the Florida concealed carry group. If you say one thing that these people don't agree with, they just freak out on you, which we're fixing that, by the way. So now we have instituted a one-shot, one-time thing. If you're a jerk on the group, you're out. You're blocked. You're never going to get back on the group again. I wish I could do the same thing on YouTube, but it's too out of control. The bottom line is we need to go out there and win the hearts and the minds of people. Because if we don't, we will lose our country.
And I found that reading your book, I can tell my inner circle of friends, like I spread the word of, what all the laws are and educate everybody that I talk to, but just from your material.
That's awesome, man. And one of the biggest misconceptions among the people in the middle, the people that don't own guns and don't know much about this, is they truly just believe that Florida is a Wild West. Anybody looks at me wrong, boom, stand your ground. You dented my car door, boom, stand your ground. Like that's what people believe. And then when they actually go through my trainings, they read my books and they really start to develop a good understanding of what's the requirements are. They're like, oh my gosh, like there's actually a lot of things that have to happen before you have a right to use a gun in a self-defense situation. This is not like you can just shoot people with no consequences.
It's not. Go to the gas station, pick up a gun, you get 100 rounds with your gun, and you just go around and just protect yourself.
Yeah, exactly. A lady in my class last night, it was super funny. So she's like, I was explaining to her how to go buy her first gun, and she's like, so I'm not allowed to just walk in and buy a gun and just walk out with it? And I was like, no, it hasn't been like that since, a very long time, man, 20 plus years. And she's like, oh my God, I just didn't realize that. She's like, I have to have an ID to buy a gun. And I'm like, yeah, driver's license. And she was just totally shocked because she has been fed this perpetual lie by the anti-gun community that we're just allowed to walk out there, buy a freaking belt-fed machine gun for $50, includes 1,000 rounds of ammo, and we're just allowed to walk around Walmart with it. But that's part of the lie that we have to fight to fix.
Completely agree, Ryan.
Kareem, how are you, buddy?
I'm great, Ryan. Thank you. I'm sorry I'm a little late, but I had, what can I say? It's Wednesday. To follow what you said, you're absolutely correct. I'll give you one even better than that. To show someone a stripped AR-15 lower, no trigger, no forward assist nothing, just a stripped lower receiver, you'd be amazed at the number of people that go, I got to fill out a Form 4473 for this. Yes, for that piece of metal with no trigger,
Yeah.
no pins in it, not even a buffer tube. And I always find it amazing that there's a lot of truth about how you can own a firearm, where you can get a gun from, the requirements that are out there in the public. They're not hidden. You don't need to be, a member of a secret society. But the lies about gun ownership seem to prevail, and I don't know why. I mean, let's be honest. Is there anyone besides myself that may remember the Hunter Special at Walmart? What the Hunter Special used to be, you could get a Glock pistol and a AR-15 for under $800. That was called a Hunter Special. Or if you didn't want an AR-15, you can get a pump shotgun that would usually be about $700 or $800.
Oh my gosh, that is a smoking deal.
Yeah, and granted, now that was, I hate to say it, almost 30 years ago, at 25 at best, but no such animal exists now.
Yeah.
And with all the truth that's out there, courses like yours and things going on, it just amazes me how the blatant lies are out there. And I think that one thing the Second Amendment community has to deal with more so, and this is just my opinion now, than anybody else, is that we have to deal more with the lies about gun ownership than the truth. And that I find very, very, very strange. Like, I'll give you an example. The police officers, sheriff deputies, that were shot at in, I think it was Broward County.
Yeah.
When we talk about legal gun ownership, okay, the guy that shot at the deputies and ended up getting killed, multiple convicted felon.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they got that part. So there's nowhere, especially in the state of Florida, where him having a gun is legal anywhere. Okay, then you backed it up with he had an AR style pistol.
Right.
That was an AR style pistol, which once again, Ryan, if I'm wrong, please chime in. Aren't AR style pistols frowned upon in the state of Florida? Remind me, how does that exactly work with an AR style pistol in the state of Florida?
No, everything's legal in Florida. There's only 5 types of ammunition that are illegal here, and then bump stocks. But besides that, I mean, if you can afford it, you can buy it.
Which goes back to, like I said, all of these rules that are put up to block, quote, criminals from getting guns. And a guy that has been convicted of multiple felonies, and as far as we know, has never been pardoned for any of them.
Yeah.
Was able to get his hands on an AR pistol and get into a gunfight with sheriff deputies. And here's another lie that I wish, the current president had told. Wasn't it Joe Biden who said, shoot him in the leg? Yeah. Go back and watch the video. Didn't the guy continue to fight with the police, firing rounds, hobbling?
Yeah, right. Hobbling around.
Didn't he hobble over to the police officer and beat him in the head with the AR pistol? So now please explain to me how you have a video, modern day, barely a month old, of a guy hobbling on one leg to attack a sheriff's deputy and beat him over the head with an empty AR-15 pistol, yet no one called Bravo Sierra on the president for saying, shoot him in the leg.
Yeah. Because I think we all know, Kareem, that the truth is not what's important, especially to deceitful people like this, right? It's about just being confident in your lie. Like we all saw Nancy Pelosi the other day was on stage and she said, what did she say? The Obama agenda. We're just trying to fulfill the Obama agenda. So there's all these memes on the internet, right, about, who's really running the country right now. We all know that it is not Joe Biden. But they're going to say for years, we never said that. What are you talking about? They just brush it under the rug, and they pretend that this stuff never happened. They've done it time and time again. But because people are lazy, dumb, and broke, most people just don't pay attention to it.
I got one for you. I entered a clubhouse room with Jesse Ventura. I think you have the right to own a gun to defend your property, but you should not be allowed to take it. I told him.
You're kind of breaking up a lot, Scotty.
Sorry. Can you hear me now?
I can, yep. So start over, Scotty, if you don't mind.
Okay, no problem. So I talked to Jesse Ventura in his little clubhouse room the other day, and I asked him about the Second Amendment, how he felt about it. And he said that He thinks everyone should be allowed to have a gun on their own property, but you should not be allowed to take your gun out in the public. I told him he was a
Interesting.
moron.
You told him that?
Yeah, I told him he was a moron.
That's awesome, dude. Yeah, that's the dumbest thing ever, right? It's like saying I only need a gun for home defense, but I'm not going to walk around and conceal carry my gun. People say this to me all the time. If you truly believe that you need a firearm for your personal safety, we don't know when a violent attack is going to occur, which means we're either ready none of the time or we're ready all of the time. There's nothing in between, right? That's just a very dumb comment. But again, these are coming from people who have bodyguards, private security detail, walking around and protecting them. So, right, they don't need it because they have hired guns protecting them. I can't afford a private security team. It would be cool, but I can't afford a private security detail to follow me around everywhere.
Yeah, they don't realize that criminals, they don't have a set schedule of when they're going to commit crimes.
Sure. Or the fact that criminals are just opportunistic. You know, I forgot about this story. It was yesterday morning when we were getting the kids ready for school. We all stand in the kitchen and pray as they're leaving, right? And my son, Jackson, almost got kidnapped. And it was when he was 3 years old, and it was my fault, 100% my fault that this situation happened. We were in Canada. Again, we were at Tiffany's brother's wedding. We were at the hotel, and, you know, there's lots of cousins, there's lots of aunties and uncles and grandmas and great-grandmothers and stuff. So, like, you just are like, oh, last time I saw him, he was with grandma, or I saw him with auntie a few minutes ago, right? So the kids are all running around, and then it got to the point where it's like, I haven't seen Jackson in a minute. Where is Jax? So then we're all, like, looking, and I walked upstairs to the second floor. It's only a 2-story hotel. And I see this man. He's holding Jackson's hand, and he's walking Jackson into a hotel room. So I yelled, hey. And then the guy's like, oh, hey, I found him. Bullshit. I found kids before. And when I find a kid, I'll pick him up. I'll bring him to a security, to the front desk, whatever. And I'm like, hey, I found this kid. Like, let's get on the radio, the loudspeaker, and let's find a parent. You don't walk the kid into your bedroom. Does that make sense? But that was a situation that we could have
whipped his ass.
Bro, it was a moment where I was very stunned at what was even happening. Because again, if you've never been in a situation like this before, you've never seen somebody get killed or acts of extreme violence, it's like, is this really happening right now? It kind of seems like a movie, and it takes a second to process. But it's emotional for me to even think about it, because that guy would have knocked Jax out, stuffed him in a suitcase, whatever, walked out, and we would have never freaking seen him again. We never know when these crazy things are going to happen. We never know. And you're either ready or you're a victim.
Yeah, you're a better man than me. I'm a father. I would have whipped his ass. So I give you credit for not whipping his ass.
Go ahead, Timothy.
Now, I'm saying I completely agree, especially when it comes to, like, when you're out and about with your kids. I mean, and I say thankfully because it's a positive. But for me, being deployed overseas and being in conflict, it keeps me always on guard. So especially when my kids are with me, you know, my head's always on a swivel, and I'm always looking around. That way, you know, it eliminates the possibilities of a surprise, because you always got to be on your ready, because that, like you said, that's when the criminals usually do something. It's an opportunity.
Yeah. So again, like that guy at that hotel, I don't think he set out that day to try to take my kid, but I think he saw a bunch of kids running around and was like, if I stand here long enough, a kid's going to run by and I'm going to be able to grab him and do whatever, right? They are opportunistic, and we got to make sure that we understand that. What's really scary is, you know, most women that are victims of sexual assault, they knew their attacker. I probably shouldn't talk about that, but, you know, a lot of women that are raped and molested, they knew that person that did it to them because that predator is waiting for the opportunity. We have to make sure we're keeping our heads on a swivel and really pay attention. And that a woman said to me, maybe it was yesterday, maybe it was Saturday, but she said, I don't trust anyone. I don't trust anyone ever. I always distrust everybody. And I personally disagree with that. I think that's a very stressful life if we don't trust people. So I trust everybody, but I also have a plan to kill everybody that I meet if I have to.
I'm right there with you, Ryan.
Crystal, how are you? Welcome to the room. What do you have to add to the conversation today?
Sorry, were you talking to me?
Yeah.
Well, I'm a single woman.
Yeah.
I live in my car. I got my gun to be able to protect myself and got my permit so I could specifically keep myself safe. There's no point in having a gun just for home defense. Like, if you're not gonna carry it with you, so many dangers happen outside of the home. Like in your house, you're relatively mostly safe, depending on the area you live in. But out out and about, you come in contact with more people, and you don't know who you're coming into contact with. When you're at home, you have more control over who's coming into your house and who's around, and yeah.
Yeah, I think to a degree we have more control, but there's been several stories in the news here in Florida lately where a predator identified a victim and then just watched them. They hunted them. They stalked them. And then when the moment was right, that's when they approached the home and started jiggling doorknobs to see if doors were unlocked, windows were unlocked, whatever. I had a student in my class, within the last couple years. His wife was like 7 or 8 months pregnant. And pregnant women, they're uncomfortable. They get hungry or whatever. So middle of the night, she said to the husband, can you go downstairs and get me a snack or something like that? So he said, sure, no problem. So he walks downstairs. I guess the wife decided to follow him down. He flips on. I don't want you to imagine for a second that this happened to you. He walks into the kitchen. It's got a beautiful kitchen, and there's a big window right in the middle, right by the sink. He flips on the kitchen light, and he sees a man, 2 or 3 in the morning, sees a man standing right outside of his kitchen window. How freaking terrified would you be? So he sees him, and he's like, what the hell, dude? And then the other guy just opened fire. Shot through the window, shot the pregnant wife in the leg or something like that. The baby survived. Shot the husband a couple times, and then the bad guy just took off. So what they didn't know is that there was 3 or 4 bad guys attempting to break into their house, and they startled the bad guy by suddenly walking downstairs and flipping on the light.
I mean, of course, we can't always be safe in a house, but people can still get in. But it's a little bit more secure than a vehicle or a parking lot or a grocery store or any other public place you go to.
Yeah, I agree with you. Sorry, I'm typing a quote, so anybody got anything to say, jump in.
Yeah. Do you offer any situational awareness classes?
I have a class that I've been working on. We just haven't published it yet. And maybe I'll just do it live. I actually think that might be a good idea. Would you guys want that? Leave a comment down below if you'd want me to do a full course. I would deliver the course live just on situational awareness.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, I'll be there.
I would definitely watch that.
That would be
For
cool.
sure.
Okay, cool. So we'll set that up then. Awesome. I appreciate you guys. I think we're going to end it there. I've got another meeting that I got to get to here shortly. Thank you, everybody on Clubhouse, all the speakers that jumped on. Kareem, good to see you again, man. Crystal, it's great to see you. Thank you to everybody that tuned in on Facebook, on YouTube. And I'll leave this open for a few more minutes, and then we'll shut it down.
All right, thank you, Ron.
Thanks, Ryan.
Have a good night, everyone.
I was
Good
going to
night.
tell you, I'm
Everyone, take
Seely
care.
in
Everybody's
the chat.
Oh, Crystal,
The
you're
Seely.
Seely.
Yes, that's me, Seely. It's,
Awesome.
It's not Kaylee, it's Seely. I know it's weird. It's actually a mix between, it's my first initial kind of, and then my middle name.
Okay.
So.
Awesome. Great. Well, it's good to hear your voice. It's always cool to like put a face and hear the voice of the people that are on the chat. So that's awesome. All right. Thanks for watching, guys. I greatly appreciate you. Be safe, and we'll see you next week at 5 o'clock. Hey, guys. Thanks for watching on Facebook and on YouTube. We will see ya